Welcome to your Midweek Word. Today we're going to be giving you a recap from the annual gathering this past Sunday. We know not everybody was able to join us, and we really want the whole congregation to be on the same page. So you'll be hearing aspects from the annual gathering, as well as some highlights that we want to make sure you know. An important thing to keep in mind is that both on the welcome kiosk when you come into church, and linked to this email and this coming Friday's email are all the documents that were shared at this past Sunday's annual gathering. If you need a hard copy of any of the items linked in either of those emails, you can email me and I'll make sure to have them ready for you in the front office on Sunday. With this type of update, or recap rather, we hope that you find ways to connect. In this past Sunday's annual gathering, we heard from our Insight leadership team. This is the team that was formed as the implementation team from our discernment process last Lent. We heard about the roadmap of the 4 key takeaways from the discernment information and how we're, as a congregation, living into those and making them a reality. We also had a large section of our annual gathering focused on the ad hoc team that came out of the council, Insight leadership team, and community discernment at large, to note that one of the key takeaways was healthy relationships and partnerships between staff and laity and outside partners. Before we go to our outside partners, we wanted to make sure that lay leadership and staff had a meaningful system and process to function in. So we heard from Ann Comstock and Aaron Gangloff, the 2 co-leads for that ad hoc team. Last Wednesday's Midweek Word, you heard from one of the at-large members of that ad hoc team, Willow Carter. So if you didn't get a chance, go back to last week's and get a bit more information there. The videos you'll see today come from our annual gathering, and we hope that they provide you with a context of what was shared as well as what is to come. Our hope, again, is that you always feel informed, but more importantly, that you know how to engage and make sure that this community is embodying what we discerned together last Lent. We want your feedback on the lay leadership system that we shared this past Sunday. On February 18th, there will be a meeting to kind of discuss. Meeting isn't a great descriptor of it. It's more of a Q&A. Come, discuss, get more detail. For those who want the detailed documents, we will have those for you. For those who are just trying to make sure all the bases are covered, come. Or if you're somebody who's going, what will this mean and how will it actually change? Come, have your questions answered, or maybe pose questions we haven't even thought of. That's the beauty of a congregational-led community. Together, we see the gaps, we see the areas of growth, and we see the positivity and the areas of strength. So, enjoy this recap from the annual gathering. And we hope that this coming Sunday, you will join us for worship back in the sanctuary at 10:30 with normal Sunday schedule. Thanks so much for your flexibility this past Sunday, where we adjusted things so that we could honor this important communal work together. Thanks for voting on the nominating ballot and our 2024 financial plan. Calvary, together we get to make ministry happen. And sometimes we have to pause a bit to do a bit of business. And hopefully this past Sunday we were able to celebrate too. You've done amazing work in 2023, and it's been a joy to serve with you. And now we get to dream and live into and embody what God is calling us to do throughout the rest of 2024. We're grateful to be able to end in the black. We are grateful to be able to have a financial plan approved by the congregation. And we look forward to all the ways the lay leadership resysteming, restructuring, refocusing comes to be, allowing our staff and laity to be in healthy partnership. Calvary, thank you for always sharing your voice, contributing, and making this community yours. Enjoy this Midweek Word recap.
So this is the time in our celebration gathering to recognize volunteers. We thought it'd be fun to just thank you all for all the little things that you do behind the scenes that may not get seen, but really are the lifeblood and the life force of our ministry here at Calvary. So I'm going to call out some categories. And when I call out the category, if this is you, I just want you to raise your hand. So just to start, in honor and loving memory of Ruth Shanklin, raise your hand if you have written a card or note to a Calvary member this year. Great. Raise your hand if you brought an in-kind donation for Bootstraps and Blessings, Kentucky Circle Village, or the Giving Tree. Awesome. Raise your hand if you sent a text or made a phone call after somebody was in the hospital just to check in on them. Awesome. Raise your hand if you dropped a meal at somebody's house or sent a Grubhub or Mealtrend card. There is so much that each one of us does to make this church work. So this year we got everybody a gift. It is this little lens cloth. Somebody was asking me if it was a patch. It's a lens cloth. Silk on one side, microfiber on the other. Use it on your glasses, your tablets, your cell phones. And as you use it, remember it is well. Remember that we seek to be well and whole as volunteers. We seek to be healthy.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light.
I'm Beth Dickinson, Chair of Staff Relations, if you don't know me for some reason. And I get to talk about the Insight Leadership Team. And in the event, you may be wondering, what is that? Because maybe you're new at Calvary, or as Roger would say, I've slept since then. So just a quick refresher to remind you kind of how we got where we are later today in our later presentations. So during Lent of last year, we undertook an in-depth discernment process, and we had listening sessions in person, we had online surveys, we had a lot of ways to participate. And many of the facilitators for that session, or those sessions, then agreed to work with our pastors to digest the large amount of data that you all provided, and it really was a large amount of data, and then to kind of figure out how could we use that information as we look at Calvary's future going forward. So that was first called the Discernment Team, and eventually we became the Insight Leadership Team, and now it's the ILT, so you have the short version. We emphasized at that time that the process of responding to the discernment findings would not be a one and done sort of thing. So, maybe in the past we had some kind of sessions and we did something and that was it. That's not it this time. Rather, it's a process. So we're going to focus on a few things at a time, make sure we can do those well, try and address near-term solutions in an agile way, and also plan for the future that came out of the discernment process. And as part of that, we affirmed that we would use what's called the Agile Church model, that includes brainstorming, beta testing, evaluating, and then adapting the plans based on the results of those tests so that we don't keep repeating something that's not working. The ILT condensed the discernment results down to 4 high-level insights that represented the major themes or top priorities that came out of that process. And there they are. There are 4, in short: caring and connecting, financial wellness, balanced ministry partnerships between pastors and laity, and sharing our unique story. So once these insights were spelled out, the ILT went about determining ways in which Calvary could build on those strengths, our strengths, as well as improve what we're doing for the future in each of these areas. We developed a number of avenues for communication. We did FAQs, which are online, e-news articles, Sunday forums, talking with people out in the narthex on Sunday mornings. And we did a roadmap to kind of show at a glance, or maybe a couple glances, everything we're undertaking or planning with church lay leadership partners and what the timing is for those. And we're updating that quarterly. We're going to take a look at that today and kind of give you an idea of where we've been and where we're going.
I don't need one now, do I? Now I'm as tall as. Do you see, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way back up. Do you see the net operating income? Do you see 103, 982, 64? What? We ended in the black. by 103. Are we something? 103, 982. Yeah, yeah. It's huge. But you need to have your listening ears on because I'm going to explain how we got there. Two big numbers. First one, the operating account, the account we always talk about, ended with a profit of, well, net revenue of $43,306. That's operating. We generally, in the past few years, have ended with a $20,000 net revenue. This, we doubled it. Okay. In part, these guys are going to talk about it more later, but in part, we did get lots of money in December. So we go all year long, wondering and hoping and praying that we're going to really do it right. And then in December, kablam, we got some really good money in. So that helped. And this $43,000 extra in the black does indeed help us meet our wellness desires to sustain long-term financial wellness. It will help us do that. Now the bigger $60,000, the rest of it, that came from building rentals. And that's the money you haven't seen up until now on purpose, because it was always earmarked for building upgrades. Bill Warren, ask Bill Warren, he'll tell you how he spent it, and his team. It's purposely set aside for building upgrades because we desperately needed them 10 years ago up until now. Now it's relevant, it's more practical that we move those rental incomes into the operating budget. Building will still be taken care of and fixed up, but not in the same way it has needed it in the past. Okay, I'm done. I'll be back, but ask questions when you need to. $43,000. Yay, 43,000.
Thank you, Cindy. That's such wonderful news regarding our 2023 financials. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Natalie Ralston, and I am chair of the Stewardship Committee. The results from stewardship season were great, with a total of $605,133 committed in pledges for 2024 from 178 people. There were also 20 new pledges and 54 increased pledges, which is so fantastic. I believe that the new pledges in particular indicate that people feel welcome at Calvary and connected to our community. But Calvary, your giving inspires others to give, and it is clear that members and regular attenders are inspired by what is happening here at Calvary, and that moves people to give.
I just want to celebrate this 40,000 plus that we have ended in the positive this year. And to make the connection that look at the energy in this room. We had to pull out extra tables. We even had to pull out an extra potluck table, right? These are signs and symbols that this is not just a financial abundance. It's an abundance of spirit and of presence.
Good morning. My name is Jim Comstock. I am the chairman of the nominating committee. The only picture of me in the report you see is on page 62. I will be in the back afterward to autograph that picture if you would like that. On the very back of that is the nominating committee nominating report. It is not very big. What we did this year is the council asked that those who were on the ballot and were going off would extend for 3, 4, 5 months until we decide how we're going to staff our council. So all I did was ask people to respond and stay on for maybe 3, 4, 5 months. I was successful with everybody, but a few. One that you will notice is we no longer have co-moderators. Rick Breitenbecker is now off, and we only have one moderator, and that's Erin. Woohoo! You can give her a woohoo if you want. And then only 2 other people decided not to be part of that. So our ballot, we're only going to vote for them to stay on about 3 or 4 months until we have a new direction, or if we don't have a new direction, we will go ahead and fill out a ballot like we already have had in the past. But if we decide to change, we have to change the ballot itself.
All right, it's that moment everyone's been waiting for. Beth was giving us a warm up when she was up here talking about the ILT. So between Ann Comstock and I, we are going to go through what this ad hoc team has taken a look at for the past couple of months. Really, this has been a journey. We have listened. We've had a big year of listening and going through everything that everyone has said. And one of the big things was talking about our lay leadership and how that's structured here at Calvary and going forward. So a couple of things. First of all, you know you have about 900 handouts on your table. So a part of those is we do have some scripture. It'll also be up here. So this is going to be a little bit interactive, except for the really, really long ones, which I pulled the short straw, and I will go ahead and read those. But the rest of you, if they're short, I'm going to need your help doing that. And then we're going to take some time to go through this, and then we'll have some time for some table talk discussion. But along this journey, and a lot of you saw this in our midweek, thanks to Pastor Morgan and for Willow Carter for that message during our Wednesday. You heard a lot about our values. You also heard about it a little bit with our ILT. That our values really are that caring and connecting. We want to thrive financially, our well-being, being good partners, and telling our story, right? And so the goal of that is to have a structure that embodies all of that, but a desire to be agile, to be efficient, to be flexible, to be adaptive, and allow for all the skills and development for fostering and balancing our decision-making. So taking that, we did several weekend retreats to kind of really work through that. And this became kind of our shining light, is our prism. So as you know, if you've been in any kind of science class, that prism, when the light comes through and it hits that base, okay? And anyone can hold it up. I don't see anyone holding it up. This one's heavy. It enters in, and then when it comes back out, we see a beautiful rainbow, right? And it's gorgeous. As I was walking in this morning, there was actually almost like a prism effect coming from the sanctuary. And I was like, this is very telling of what today is going to be. So that is how we kind of guided our thinking for this structure, is by using that presence. What we've had coming in from all of you, that's that light, right? And it's coming in and it's reflecting out, and it is beautiful. So with that, we have our prism.
But we want to talk, first of all, about the vision and discernment team. You heard from Beth earlier, the Insight leadership team. So what we discovered was that is an important group. That idea of listening and adapting and sharing, being the light, your voice that moves through the prism, moves through Calvary, is something that is worth and needs to be sustained.
Our Connecting Needs with Gifts team. And by having this team, we are able to help identify, to search out those members with those individual gifts and talents to help us in our team and ministry needs to connect the two. So with that, this helps us kind of what we did with nominating, to expand that so that we're covering everything, but that everybody here can be a part of that.
The formation and engagement team, this is the rainbow at the outside of the prism, right? This is the work. These are the program areas, the ministries of Calvary. This is who we are. It is so, it's Calvary at its essence, right? So some of these, we fondly call them, as we were doing our work, some of these rainbow stripes, but you would be thinking of them as sub-teams, or the term that's used now is often committee.
The word deacon comes from a Greek word, which means servant. And through the dust is what we've learned, and has helped guide us through this, implying the active work of ministry that would make one's feet or hands dusty as they move about. Deacons play an active role as servant leadership here at Calvary. Something to keep in mind, we were all servant leaders, we're all here to give and to serve. And what we're doing is we're calling out Calvary deacons to help us with that leadership. So our steering board, which is something that's a little bit different, will be comprised of 14 of the deacons. The steering board is the leadership. It's a collective leadership of Calvary to ensure ministries align with our values and support our both laity leaders, our staff. In partnership with the pastoral staff, they oversee leadership and guidance and direction for the vision of Calvary and the implementation of our mission. Also seeking to discern God's call for Calvary Baptist Church of Denver. With these 14 deacons, They will be co-leaders. We would have co-moderator, vision and discernment, connecting gifts with need, formation and engagement, financial wellness, property, and staff relations. The executive board assumes all the nonprofit fiduciary authority that is responsible for here at Calvary for us being a nonprofit. So out of that steering committee, you have the 14. And from there, go 8. Those 8 are co-moderators, financial and wellness, which would be treasurer and stewardship. You have property. Those would handle internal property, the building and the grounds outside would be the external property, staff relations with human resources, and also the caring for our pastors and our staff. So that 8 would be able to then make those nonprofit decisions that we would need to make in the church.
So there, that was it. That was the reveal of what it is. What has this group been doing? What have they been thinking about? And so we know certainly that your minds, your brains are percolating around questions, and there are going to be those, and it's going to be an opportunity for you to begin to voice those or opinions. But I want to talk to you just a little bit about what has changed, what's different, at least what we know now, and to remind you that this is the process. This is discernment. So this is our best effort, and we're going to be hearing from you. And so what you see today, what you see now, may look a little bit different when we end up at a place where we're ready to vote on what the structure actually is. So you notice that there are 14 elected deacons. That's less than what the typical slate here at Calvary is. Typically, we're nominating leadership, we're nominating committees and all those things. So it can be as many as 35 people. It's big. And what we're talking about is a smaller number of those elected leaders by the congregation. But what we're hoping for is an even larger number of people involved in service, right? You also will know in our current bylaws and in the structure, there are different terms for people. And for some, the term seems like a lifetime. 2 years can feel like, are you kidding? Are we there yet? And for others, it's like, I'm hitting my stride. I like this. I could do this until I, go to the columbarium, right? So there you are. So what we want to allow is, we want to allow a 2-year term commitment to allow for stability and for people to get to know the work. We want to allow at each year, we're going to reassess. We're going to go back to those people and say, it's a year in, how are you feeling? Is this still good for you? But we're going to hope that people can commit to 2 years. And then our suggestion would be, beyond that, we're going to remove the term limits. So if someone each year is feeling like I am doing well here, and the people that they're serving feel like, yes, you are doing well here, they can continue to serve until it's no longer the right time or season for them to do that. So that's new. That would be different in the recommendations that we're making. And the other thing that's a little bit different is, you remember on your ballot now, you all were voting on all of those different committee members, whatever size that would be. When we talked about this, we thought about what is going to make it most flexible and most agile and most meaningful. So while we will have leads or co-leads in all of these different areas, we'll go back, co-leads, where you saw the different teams, and oh, look, there's the words. There they are: worship, music and arts, caring, growing, learning, hospitality, serving, advocating, and future teams. There will be leads with that, but those leads, in working with the connecting gifts and needs teams, they will decide how many members do we need on this team? What project is it that we need to do? So that team right there in the middle, going to be critical, going to be hardworking. They'll be working with the leaders. And so us all as a congregation aren't going to have to vote on every committee member for all of these rainbow stripes and every other team. We are going to allow those leaders who know best what's happening in their work, what the needs are, the current needs, to invite people in to work with them, as long as it's necessary. So that's a bit of a difference. That's what's changed as well. All right. So those are the major differences right now. Okay. Let me let you know what's still happening for the ad hoc team. And I have to just say to the team, they thought it was like a two-day commitment. Yep, it's grown, hasn't it, team? And you've been so gracious to stick with us. So the first thing is, we obviously need to do more work. We have some drafts of some of these committees and what their responsibilities will be, et cetera. Those are under draft form, and based on your feedback here, those will be continued to be drafted before they're presented to you all as a congregation. We have people that love bylaws. They love them. And so they're going to go and look at what bylaw changes would need to be in place in order for us to be in compliance with where we need to be. We also are very interested in developing and implementing a consensus-based model of how we make decisions. We tried it at the retreat. It works really well. It allows for a lot of feedback and a lot of input. So you'll hear more about that. And then the last thing, and certainly not least, is we are exploring staff roles and responsibilities in this system.
The budget, couple of things, just a few things. Last year, 2023, thinking backward just a little bit, I don't want to say this. Our last year's actual monies that we, spent and received, it was $1,019,541. That is $14,000 shy of the budget that we have for 24. That makes sense? So we often look back and see what we received in the previous year, like for, what are they, tithes and offering. They're not knowable. We don't know what we're going to get. But we look back at that number that we just received and we plug it into the new budget, 24, if we think it's a reasonable number that we'll attain again. And revenue streams, it's line 111 in my favorite. Okay, line 111 is revenue streams. That's the next page. I mean, there's a bunch. This is where we're going to get our money. Y'all wondered, well, what's going to happen? How are we going to do it? How are we going to make it? We will, I promise you. We finished this year at 43,000 over. We will.
So I'm representing the budget reconciliation team, which is Cindy, 2 reps from Finance Committee, which were Nancy Chick and Kevin Janelle. Co-moderators, Aaron Gangloff, Rick Breitenbecker, Bill Warren as the chair of resource management, Beth Dickinson as the chair of staff relations, and myself as senior pastor. So this is the document that's color-coded, your proposed budget. This is what we'll be voting on. I'm going to hit some highlights for you, first in the expenses section, then in the income section. But I want to say on a high level, I've been doing this for a few years now, and this is the first time as the budget reconciliation team came together with financial wellness in mind, that when we saw the gap that we had with our proposed budget and where we were, instead of looking immediately to what we could cut, which is, something we've done for many years, we still need to do, but we first looked at income and said, where can we maximize our income? Where do we have income that we may not realize is at our disposal? So I want to give a huge shout out to the reconciliation team, because we actually had a couple just high level meetings talking about these income streams before we actually got down to the nitty gritty. So in your line item budget, just going to hit a few highlights for some of the sections. And please save your questions till the end, and I'll have Cindy come back up with me for the questions. But in staff relations, this does include hiring for a pastoral administrative assistant, beginning as early as April 1st. This includes parental leave coverage support for this summer. It includes a staff transition and potential new hire, and it includes percentage increases for staff. So all of that is in staff relations. Resource management, everything in resource management is pretty much either based on actuals from this past year or anticipated proposed things we know because our utilities tell us things are increasing, and snow removal and stuff like that is always a guess, an educated guess, but a guess. The biggest line item change you'll see is in line 22, building maintenance and repairs. We have upped this line item by a significant amount because as we were looking at our building needs holistically, we now want to run all of our repairs through our operating budget. You may not know this, you didn't need to know this, but in the past, some went through operating and some came out of a TRF, or restricted fund. Now we just want to say, if it's everyday maintenance, things around, we want to run it through operating. So we have put more money there to anticipate that increase. Missions, most of our mission partners are the same ones we've been supporting for several years. We gave increases to our global servant pairs and an increase to our American Baptist Church family, 65% of that comes back to the region. We've had tremendous support from the region this year, including facilitation for free and other things. So we want to honor that. You'll also see probably the biggest change in missions is that the Blessings Ministry, formerly, I think it may still say, I don't know if I changed, Blessings. We used to be Bootstraps and Blessings. We are now putting that in the operating budget because our shopping at King Soopers and Safeway can't fully support the needs there. Please keep shopping at King Soopers and Safeway, but we need to augment that a little bit, so it's now in the operating budget. And then, as always, we have a mission response line item for unexpected things that might come up, and we did increase it a bit in hopes and anticipation of some partnership with the Tamarack, which is the new shelter down the way. Music and sound, the biggest difference there is that all of our choral assistants now are funded completely through the music budget, not just partially for half a year or whatnot. So this is the full 9 months for all 4 of our choral assistants. Faith formation, if I'm not mentioning a section, it's because there's not a huge thing. You can ask questions about it, but there's nothing I thought needed to be pointed out. In faith formation, we are now, you'll see money in line 65, youth special events, for things like camp registration fees. We're putting all of that into operating. You'll see later in income where we're accounting for that when a family pays a registration fee for a student. But that's one reason why there's an increase there, is that we're going to be running that through operating now. And then skip through member care. Those are pretty much the same. Congregational life, office. A big jump in communications this year. We have an awesome website platform, Web Sanity. They've been telling us for a while now that we need to upgrade and rebuild our website. We're on version like negative something something, and we're supposed to be on version 10 point something. So it's $10,000 to do this upgrade and rebuild to get us up with the times. And so that's the jump that you see in communications. So income brings us to $1,034,000 and change. Sorry, expenses brings us to that amount. Any questions on expenses before I jump into our income line items? Everyone's going great. So income notes. These are, the top part should be pretty familiar to you, self-explanatory. Pledges. That is the money that you pledge, that you tell us you're going to give. So that's what that number is. And then a write-off means that we know some people can't fulfill their pledge for whatever reason, job change, death, whatnot. So we have been on track for the past several years, right at about 15,000. So that continues to be a good amount for us to budget there, that we might, not meet that goal of 605. So that leaves our pledge giving at 590. Non-pledge tithes and offerings, Cindy said this, but just a reminder, it's based on our 2023 actuals. So we brought in 101,000, so we're planning on at least that much, about 100,000, hopefully for this year as well. And then other gifts, that line item constitutes, these are not pledges, these are gifts that are given at once in advance. It's already money in the bank, so to speak. Instead of somebody telling us they're going to be giving this, they've given us some gifts, and that's how we get that line item. Then we have a really big section called TRFs, temporarily restricted funds. This is money that we all give to various causes that are dear to our hearts, or we give in memory of a loved one. And that money is restricted, meaning we can't use it until we release it. And so we're always every year looking to see how we can release it, because we don't want those gifts just to sit in the bank. They were given to be used. So we contact families for memorial gifts, and we figure out what a good match is. Believe it or not, this is not all the memorial gifts. We have a lot more we could be using too, but this was what we got confirmation on by the time we presented the budget. And then a couple other TRFs just to note. You'll see that we are pulling over 30,000 this year. This is going to be line 154 from the building rental reserve. That's income that we made in 2023 from groups that use our building. We're going to use 30,000 of that to support 2024 operating. In addition, we have about another 30,000 that we're putting into a restricted fund, major property improvements, formerly known as the building repair and replacement restricted fund. This is just what I mentioned earlier. We want all repairs to go through operating, and then major improvements. We're talking parking lot or big HVAC systems or something like that. That comes out of this TRF. But we're starting with a really healthy balance there for Bill and Chad. I want to say that so that you know we're planning for the property and our future expenses. We got a copier lease refund. You don't want to know about that. It's been years in the making, but we got it. So we're taking that $12,000. And then Barbara Ford, the generosity of Barbara Ford is just immense. And we're so grateful. We had the second and third disbursements of her bequest, and that's helping support mostly our missions budget this year. Then you'll see in line 159, earned income, fee income. That's what I was talking about, camp fees and things like that. Endowment distribution, we decided to raise the percentage that we can draw from 4% to 5%. This was done in consultation with experts and pros who know the system and looking at other nonprofits. So that's why you see a little bit of a bump there. And then the biggest line item change here is our building usage income. So in past years, we started by just putting 5,000 into operating, 10,000, 30, maybe 40 last year. We are now at a place with our building where we can say income is income. The income we receive from groups who use our building, we're going to funnel that through operating, because some of these things are hard to parse out, right? When the lights are on and toilet paper is being used and Chad's salary as our facilities and operations manager, we want to support that supports all of the ministry of Calvary. And we've accounted for that by raising the maintenance line item and other things. So we are excited to be able to utilize that income. And this is a little bit less than what we brought in for 2023. So we're a little conservative in judging, but we have a diversified portfolio, if you will, of people who use our facility. So if you have any fears about what happens if this group leaves or that group leaves, well, we lose that income, but we can probably pretty quickly fill up the space again because of how wonderful our teams do to keep that up to date. And then cash reserve, this is money accumulated over years when we end in the black, so to speak, or in the positive, we add money to that. We are well within our capacity, especially with adding in more money this year, to use about 25,000 of that and not to go below our $100,000 threshold that we have kind of decided as a team that's healthy and good for us to use. But if we don't have to use it, we won't. If we end 40,000 to the positive next year, we won't be using that 25. We're budgeting to say it's okay if we do, but we don't have to.
On the night that Jesus sat around with his friends, knowing what was before him and what brought him to that place, he took an ordinary, nourishing element, bread. He broke it. He blessed it. And he said, "This is my body, broken and given to you. Every time you take and eat, do this in remembrance of me." Likewise, after supper, he took the cup, poured it out. He said, "This is the cup of the new covenant, poured out for the remission of sins. Every time you take and drink, do this in remembrance of me."
Blessed be the ties that binds our hearts in Christian love, the fellowship of kindred minds.